Chris Combs lay quietly in the hospital bed, the oxygen tube nestled in his nose as he tried to breathe without thinking of the gnawing weakness in his chest. The room smelled of antiseptic, cold and clean, yet it did nothing to mask the storm of emotions swirling through the Combs family. He used to be the loudest voice at family dinners, the one cracking jokes and teasing his siblings relentlessly. Now, his skin was pale as winter skies, and his once thick beard had grown uneven, patchy in places. He believed the doctors were checking on his recovery after his weight loss journey, unaware of the truth that would shatter the fragile calm surrounding him. Amy, Tammy, and Michael hovered nearby, each trying to maintain composure while their hearts screamed. They had never hidden anything from Chris before, but this was different. His stomach cancer had spread too far, the doctors whispered, and there was nothing they could do to save him. To tell him now would crush him completely. Amy sobbed quietly into her hoodie, trying to keep her hands steady as she assisted him with a spoonful of soup. Tammy, normally quick to argue or joke, sat motionless, her hands folded tightly in her lap, as though turning to stone would protect her from the pain. Michael's jaw was clenched so tightly that his teeth ached, his gaze fixed on the floor as if willing the truth to change itself. Chris, for all his suffering, maintained a semblance of humor, a dim echo of the voice that had once filled every room with laughter. "Y'all, I ain't dying. I'll be running again if you just give me a cheeseburger," he quipped, managing a weak smile. Amy forced a smile back, her hands shaking as she tried to stabilize the spoon. Tammy brushed his arm gently as she rolled her wheelchair closer, whispering, "You're annoying enough to outlive us all." Chris coughed violently, laughed through it, and neither spoke of the real reason for his weakening body. At home, the family gathered without him, the air thick with sorrow. Tissues were strewn across the table as they debated the unthinkable. "He should know," Amy said, fists clenched, eyes brimming with tears. "He's our brother." Tammy shook her head, voice breaking. "So what? Do we shatter him? Before the cancer manifests itself, do we murder him with the news? He's fragile. He just found happiness after losing weight." Michael muttered, barely audible. "He very recently began to live." Silence fell again, unbearable and heavy. They were lying to keep him calm, not to protect themselves, a love too heavy to bear. Days passed, and Chris began to lose more weight, not from diet or surgery, but from the cancer that gnawed at him from the inside. He no longer joked, though hope still flickered in his eyes. He would watch old family videos, laughing softly at memories. "Can we have a large barbecue when I get home? If you allow me, I'll cook," he asked one afternoon, his smile gentle and wistful. Amy nodded through a crack in her voice. "Yes, a large barbecue. Make a promise." Tammy squeezed his hand. "Everyone will be present," she whispered. Chris' gaze softened. "You mean together?" he asked. "Whatever occurs," Tammy muttered, a quiet affirmation that they would make his remaining days filled with love. Weeks later, a new opportunity arrived, a chance to step away from sorrow for a moment. Amy received an email from a British television program, Worldwide Wellness Stories, inviting them to London to showcase their weight loss journey. The flight, accommodation, and expenses were covered. Tammy's eyes sparkled. "London like Big Ben?" she asked. "Yes, girl," Amy replied. Tammy squealed. "Tea, biscuits, and red phone booths. Do they provide fries and fish? Actual ones?" Amy gave a dramatic nod. "Yes, Tammy. The original edition, fish and chips from the first print." They both screamed with joy. Packing for the trip was chaotic. Clothes, shoes, and snacks littered every surface. Amy insisted on looking like a style icon, trying on glitter hoodies, stretchy jeans, and shirts proclaiming herself queen of snacks. Tammy faced her own dilemma. Which headbands to bring? 43 options sprawled across the bed, from tie-dye to glitter unicorns. "Just pack 6, Tammy," Amy urged. "6? I swap headbands more often than you do," Tammy countered. Ultimately, 12 made the cut. The plane ride raised questions of food, weight restrictions, and practicality. Amy's bag beeped at 52 pounds, tipping over the airline limit. Your emergency snack suitcase is to blame. Tammy shrugged. Problem-solving involved snacking right there, carefully reducing weight while maintaining morale. For the tea gathering in London, Amy had chosen a lovely dress. Tammy. Glittery attire fit for royalty. Do I resemble the queen?
Tammy asked.
Amy squinted. Perhaps the Walmart queen. Both laughed until tears welled. Back home, life continued, fraught with challenges and triumphs. Amy faced weigh-in days with dread, haunted by memories of past failures, health struggles, and grief from her late husband, Caleb. Yet she remained resolute. With Tammy's encouragement, she confronted the scale, revealing 297 pounds. Tears flowed, applause erupted, relief and pride colliding in the room. Tammy followed, stepping onto the scale, revealing 419 pounds, a 150-pound loss. Both sisters sobbed with happiness, acknowledging the struggle and the growth it represented. Their journey continued at home, adapting to healthier meals, daily routines, and emotional growth. Amy joined support groups, confronting trauma, emotional eating, and single motherhood. She confessed, tears glistening. I used to eat to feel loved. I'm learning to love who I am without food now. The sisters laughed and cried, preparing vegetables, air-fried wings, and black chocolate pudding, replacing the indulgences of their past. Months passed. Amy stood on the scale one December morning, 192 pounds lighter. Her heart raced, eyes wide with disbelief and joy. Tammy embraced her. Amy, you succeeded. Together, we accomplished it, Amy whispered. Life, parenting, and health intertwined in triumph. Yet shadows lingered. Police lights flashed outside, red and blue, signaling a new reality. Amy's rapid weight loss, divorce, and single parenthood had left her vulnerable. Weeks of stress, grief, and unprocessed trauma led her into dangerous social circles and substance misuse. Amy, once a figure of hope, now faced controlled substance possession charges. Tammy froze at the news, the weight of fear and love pressing down. Amy's addictions, the same that once haunted her food habits, stared back through the lens of reality, threatening to undo her hard-earned progress. 2 days later, the family gathered at a small counseling facility. Tammy, fragile but determined, leaned on her oxygen machine. Chris paced uneasily. Amanda clutched a tissue, and Amy's eyes, red and swollen, met theirs. She whispered, "Hey y'all, 1,000-pound sisters." Silence greeted her. Tammy's voice broke through. "We are here because we love you, Amy. You're not feeling well. We won't lose you either." Roles reversed. Amy now the one needing support. Amy took her seat beside the counselor, listening as Chris' voice cracked with encouragement. "You are needed by your lads, not a version of yourself who needs medication to survive. You're more resilient than this. You always were." Tears streamed freely as Amy admitted the pain she had hidden for years: abuse, online hatred, mom guilt, fear of failing. Tammy embraced her fiercely, sobbing into her hands. The counselor asked, "Are you willing to defend yourself?" Amy nodded slowly. She was determined. Her boys needed her, and she would fight for herself. Hours passed in therapy, paperwork, and planning, culminating in a 30-day treatment program. For the first time, hope returned. Tammy promised to care for the children while Amy healed. The family rallied, and online support erupted. The hashtag We Love You Amy trended for 8 hours, an outpouring of love and solidarity. Amy's handwritten letters from rehab spoke of gratitude and determination. She was not just healing physically, but rebuilding her spirit, motherhood, and identity. The journey ahead would be long, but for the first time in years, she felt alive, empowered, and ready to reclaim her life. The early morning sun spilled through the blinds as Amy Slaton awoke in rehab, her heart pounding with a strange mix of fear and determination. The world outside moved on without pause, unaware of the battles being fought within these walls. For years, Amy had carried the weight of her body, her grief, her mistakes, and the relentless pressure to be everything to everyone. Now, Stripped of distractions and surrounded by professional guidance, she faced herself without filters, without excuses. Tammy, always a presence even when apart, had left messages of encouragement before heading to work at the oxygen clinic. Each note was a lifeline, reminding Amy that she wasn't alone. Chris and Amanda visited when they could, their expressions a mixture of hope and guilt. Amy knew her family loved her, but the realization of how far she had fallen gnawed at her. She had lost herself somewhere between the plates of comfort food, the sleepless nights, and the weight of single parenthood. The first therapy session was both terrifying and illuminating. The counselor asked questions that cut to the heart, probing the habits Amy had built over decades. "What are you trying to fill with food?" he asked gently. Amy's throat tightened. She had never said it aloud. The fear of not being enough, of failing as a mother, of being unloved. Tears escaped despite her best efforts. "I don't know how to feel safe," she admitted, voice shaking. "I've only known food as a friend." Days bled into one another. Therapy sessions, meal planning, group discussions, and solitary reflection became the rhythm of her life. Each day presented its own challenges. She wrestled with cravings, the memory of fast food and sugary treats clawing at her resolve. But she also discovered the thrill of new tastes, steamed vegetables, air-fried chicken, smoothies bursting with fruit, flavors that nourished without guilt. Every meal was a small victory, a step toward reclaiming her body and mind. The children, Gage and Glenn, were always on her mind. Though she couldn't see them every day, the counselor emphasized the importance of emotional stability. Amy wrote letters, recorded video messages, and spoke to them on supervised calls. "Mommy's getting better, so we can have more adventures together," she told them, forcing a smile she hoped they believed. The thought of being present for her boys became both her anchor and her motivation. She refused to let addiction or past mistakes dictate their future. Tammy's presence loomed large even from afar. She handled the household with precision, managing Amy's medical appointments, supervising meals, and comforting Gage and Glenn. Each night, she documented progress and sent updates. "You'd be proud, sis," Tammy texted after a particularly rough day when Amy resisted cravings. "You're doing what you said you would, fighting for you and the boys." Amy clutched her phone, tears streaming, realizing that she had begun to believe in herself again. One afternoon, a group session focused on relapse prevention. Amy listened as other women shared stories of temptation, failure, and resilience. She identified with every narrative, yet a spark of determination grew. She had fought too hard, lost too much, and gained too little time to falter now. When it was her turn, she spoke haltingly, her voice thick with emotion. "I've spent years hiding behind food, using it to cope. But I can't do that anymore. I won't let it steal me from my boys." Applause followed, yet the greatest validation came from within, a recognition that she had begun to reclaim her life. Evenings in rehab were quiet. Amy would sit by the window, looking out at the world beyond the walls, imagining future adventures she had once dismissed as impossible. London, Paris, New York, places she had dreamed of with Tammy, but had believed were beyond reach. Now, with each pound lost, each therapy session survived, and each temptation resisted, the world felt slightly smaller, slightly more accessible. Sleep was elusive. Nightmares of her past, her losses, and her addictions plagued her rest. But each morning, she arose with renewed determination, guided by the counselors and the unwavering support of her family. She began journaling extensively, noting triggers, victories, setbacks, and reflections. The words on the page became a mirror, revealing both her pain and her potential. Weeks passed, and Amy began to notice subtle changes in herself. Her strength returned, both physical and mental. Tasks that once exhausted her now seemed manageable. She walked with more confidence, carried herself with more dignity. Even the simplest victories, resisting a craving, completing a therapy exercise, or calling Tammy to share a triumph, felt monumental. Tammy visited on weekends, bringing laughter, snacks, healthy ones carefully curated, and a reminder of home. She helped Amy reconnect with her sense of humor, the part of herself that had been buried under anxiety and addiction. Together, they planned future trips, imagining streets of London lined with red phone booths, fish and chips steaming in paper wraps, and afternoons spent sipping tea. These visions, playful and surreal, grounded Amy in the hope that life could be joyful again. The children were slowly reintegrated into her life. Amy learned to manage her emotions, communicate openly, and enforce boundaries without anger. She discovered new patients, finding ways to play, teach, and guide Gage and Glenn without succumbing to old patterns. Each interaction strengthened her resolve, reminding her that recovery was not only for herself, but for the little lives depending on her. Months of treatment culminated in a comprehensive evaluation. Amy had gained control over cravings, established healthy routines, and developed coping mechanisms for stress and trauma. Her counselors noted her remarkable progress, emphasizing the importance of continued support and accountability. Amy felt a quiet pride she hadn't known in years, the sense that she was reclaiming a life stolen by circumstance, addiction, and self-doubt. Returning home was both exhilarating and terrifying. The familiar environment, once associated with indulgence and triggers, now became a proving ground. Tammy and the family continued to support her, ensuring meals, routines, and emotional check-ins were maintained. The first few days were challenging. Old habits whispered temptations, but Amy remained steadfast. She refused to let the past dictate her future. Life began to feel balanced again. Amy established a schedule blending motherhood, self-care, and personal growth. She attended support meetings, maintained communication with her counselors, and prioritized her health. Slowly, she regained confidence in her ability to navigate the world without relying on substances or food as crutches. Amid this recovery, Amy began documenting her journey. She wrote letters, created vlogs, and shared reflections with supportive communities online. The feedback was overwhelming. People resonated with her vulnerability, strength, and authenticity. The hashtag #WeLoveYouAmy trended repeatedly, not just for sympathy, but in recognition of her relentless courage. Through it all, Amy recognized that recovery was not linear. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, and days when fear threatened to overwhelm her. But she had learned the tools to survive these moments, the strategies to rebuild herself, and the love of a family who would not let her fall. Every choice, every action, every thought became a step forward, a declaration that she deserved this life. By the end of her rehab stay, Amy had transformed, not just physically but emotionally and spiritually. She understood that true victory was not simply measured by pounds lost, but by the reclamation of self, identity, and purpose. She was no longer the woman who hid behind mountains of junk food or numbed her grief with indulgence. She was a mother, a survivor, and a warrior. And as she prepared to reintegrate fully into her family life, Amy carried with her the knowledge that recovery was ongoing. There would be challenges, temptations, and dark days ahead, but she now had the tools, support, and courage to face them. The journey had begun in pain, but it continued in hope, resilience, and love, a love for herself and for the children who depended on her. Returning home after rehab was both a relief and a test. The Slaton household had settled into a new rhythm in Amy's absence, but the return of her presence shifted the dynamic once again. Tammy had managed the house with precision, but now she had to balance her own needs with supporting Amy's reintegration. Chris and Amanda offered guidance and encouragement, yet Amy knew that the responsibility of maintaining her recovery ultimately rested on her own shoulders. The first morning back, Amy woke early, the sun spilling over the Kentucky horizon. She stretched carefully, mindful of her body's limits. Her limbs, once heavy and sluggish, now felt more responsive, though still tender in places from months of inactivity and recovery. Her mind, too, had been sharpened by reflection, therapy, and discipline. Today would be about setting the tone for life outside rehab, a delicate combination of routine, accountability, and self-compassion. Breakfast was a quiet affair. While some viewers considered the pace concerning, Others saw the relationship as a needed source of emotional stability for Amy. As Amy and Brian continued dating, things progressed faster than what many expected. Their interactions online and small details from filming revealed that Brian had integrated himself into Amy's family life early, supporting her role as a mother and becoming involved in routine responsibilities. This included attending outings with the children, helping with errands, and participating in family events. For a period, the relationship appeared positive and supportive, especially considering the challenges Amy faced following her separation. The dynamic between Brian and Amy became even more significant when the medical situation with the baby occurred. The details of the emergency were not immediately clear to the public, but what became known was that the child required hospital treatment and observation. This event brought Amy into a difficult emotional state. People who followed her online noticed fewer updates, shorter captions, and less engagement. Posts that previously included humor, selfies, crafts, and typical daily content became rare. When Amy did post, her messages appeared brief and reserved, indicating a shift in her emotional environment. While the hospitalization was occurring, Brian reportedly remained deeply involved. He assisted Amy with transportation, communication with family members, and managing schedules related to the older children. His presence during this time appeared to solidify his role not just as a boyfriend, but as a long-term partner. This support became one of the main reasons fans later speculated that Amy and Brian's relationship accelerated into engagement and possibly marriage, even before any official announcement. Amy later acknowledged that she struggled to sleep during the nights at the hospital. Their relationship, once strained by secrecy and pain, began to mend in small but meaningful ways. Evenings were moments of reflection. Amy sat with her journal, writing about victories, struggles, and goals. Each entry became a roadmap, a record of progress, and a commitment to herself. She noted the weight lost, yes, but also the strength gained in emotional resilience, clarity of thought, and self-discipline. The journey was as much about reclaiming her spirit as her body. Tammy, ever attentive, encouraged outings and small adventures. They took walks in nearby parks, exploring gentle paths while discussing dreams and plans. London remained a frequent topic, a symbol of freedom, excitement, and the life they imagined for themselves. Amy imagined sipping tea near the Thames, strolling past red phone booths, and laughing with Tammy without the burden of guilt or self-doubt. These fantasies weren't escapes. They were goals, tangible motivations driving her recovery forward. Gage and Glenn thrived in this new environment. Amy found joy in their curiosity, energy, and innocence. She taught them games, helped with homework, and engaged in creative play, conscious of being fully present. Parenting, once a source of stress and anxiety, became an arena of empowerment. Each day spent guiding and nurturing her children strengthened her sense of purpose. Therapy continued in outpatient sessions. Amy confronted lingering trauma, processed grief, and developed coping mechanisms for triggers outside the controlled rehab environment. Sessions with her counselor were intense, but rewarding. She explored patterns of emotional eating, boundaries in relationships, and strategies for managing loneliness and stress. The work was far from easy, but with each breakthrough, Amy felt lighter, more capable, and more in control of her destiny. Nutrition and exercise became integral to daily life. Amy experimented with new recipes, learning to prepare meals that were both satisfying and nourishing. She incorporated light exercise, gradually increasing intensity as her stamina returned. Tammy often joined her, whether for scooter-assisted walks or stretching routines. Their shared commitment fostered accountability and joy. Recovery was no longer a solitary battle, it was a family endeavor. Social reintegration posed challenges. Amy cautiously re-engaged with friends and acquaintances, mindful of environments and relationships that could compromise her progress. She navigated social settings with new awareness, employing strategies learned in rehab to maintain balance. Slowly, confidence returned. She was no longer defined solely by past mistakes, weight struggles, or addiction. She was evolving into a multidimensional, resilient individual capable of living fully. Months passed, Amy's body continued to transform, reflecting the cumulative effects of healthy habits, mindful eating, and active living. Yet her growth extended far beyond the physical. She felt lighter emotionally, more grounded spiritually, and more empowered psychologically. Each small victory, a resisted craving, a productive day, a calm interaction with her children, reinforced her belief in herself. Amy began documenting her journey online, sharing experiences and insights with supportive communities. She received encouragement, advice, and empathy from people who resonated with her struggles. This connection became a source of inspiration, reminding her that vulnerability and authenticity could create strength, community, and hope. By the end of the year, Amy's life had shifted dramatically. She had reclaimed her health, reestablished strong family bonds, and embraced her identity beyond addiction and weight. The road ahead remained long, but she faced it with courage, resilience, and hope. She had learned that recovery was not a destination. It was a daily commitment to herself and those she loved. And as she tucked Gage and Glenn into bed one night, Amy whispered a promise. "I will keep fighting. I will keep living. I will keep loving." It wasn't just a vow, it was a declaration of a life reclaimed, a future embraced, and a self rediscovered. The following morning brought a sense of anticipation and subtle tension. Amy had grown accustomed to structure routines in rehab, and now she faced the challenge of translating that discipline into a more chaotic home environment. Tammy wheeled beside her as they navigated the kitchen, exchanging quiet words of encouragement. Gage and Glenn scampered around, oblivious to the layers of determination and caution guiding their mother. Amy began with a small but symbolic task, organizing her medicine and supplements. Each pill, each vitamin, was a reminder of the effort she was putting into her own health. She reflected on how far she had come, the months of therapy, diet adjustments, and emotional work that had led to this moment. Tammy observed quietly, proud yet cautious, knowing that each small success needed reinforcement. Meals remained a focal point. Amy experimented with fresh vegetables, lean proteins, and wholesome grains. Breakfasts of oatmeal with fresh fruit, lunches of quinoa bowls, and dinners of roasted vegetables with air-fried chicken became the new normal. She discovered that healthy food could be both satisfying and comforting. Occasionally, she allowed herself a treat, dark chocolate, a small portion of her favorite dessert, mindfully, as a reward rather than a crutch. Tammy encouraged Amy to begin gentle physical activity again. Together, they started with short walks around the neighborhood, gradually extending their distance. Amy felt a renewed sense of freedom in movement. Each step was a testament to her resilience, a reclamation of her body after years of struggle. The sisters laughed during these walks, sharing jokes and teasing each other, blending joy with determination. Social outings became a test of her new boundaries. Amy navigated interactions with neighbors and friends carefully, aware of potential triggers. She had learned strategies for politely declining offers of unhealthy food, asserting her needs, and avoiding environments that could lead to relapse. With Tammy's support, she grew more confident in social settings, her self-esteem bolstered by each successful experience. Amy's therapy continued, focusing on long-term strategies for emotional regulation and self-compassion. Sessions explored her history of emotional eating, past trauma, and strategies for coping with stress without reverting to harmful habits. She confronted feelings of guilt and shame, particularly around her previous struggles with addiction and her fear of failing her children. By addressing these emotions head-on, she built a stronger foundation for sustainable recovery. The children noticed the changes in their mother. Gage began helping Amy with simple household tasks, imitating her careful habits and healthy routines. Glenn, though younger, responded to Amy's calmer presence, thriving in the secure environment she was cultivating. Parenting became a collaborative effort, with Tammy, Chris, and Amanda supporting Amy while respecting her autonomy. Amy also reconnected with her passion for cooking. She experimented with recipes that transformed comfort foods into nutritious options. Cauliflower mashed potatoes, air-fried chicken wings, and homemade smoothies replaced the indulgent meals of her past. Cooking became both therapy and empowerment, a tangible expression of her commitment to herself and her family. As weeks turned into months, Amy began to think about bigger goals. Travel had always been a dream, and the opportunity to visit London became a symbol of hope and reward. Planning the trip required organization, budgeting, and careful preparation. Amy and Tammy pored over guides, researched attractions, and debated outfits. The excitement was tempered by responsibility. They had to ensure the children's needs were met, their schedules aligned, and their health prioritized. The London trip also served as a metaphor for Amy's journey. Just as she planned for each day in England, she approached her recovery with foresight and intentionality. Packing, organizing, and strategizing for the journey reinforced her growing sense of control over her life. She learned to anticipate challenges, prepare for contingencies, and celebrate small victories along the way. Family bonds strengthened further. Amy and Tammy developed routines that included reflection, journaling, and mindfulness exercises. These moments of stillness allowed them to process emotions, celebrate progress, and reinforce their commitment to each other. Chris and Amanda remained pillars of support, balancing encouragement with gentle accountability. One evening, after a particularly long day of preparation and household organization, Amy sat quietly in the living room. She reflected on her journey, the months of struggle, the pain of past mistakes, and the resilience she had cultivated. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sorrow, but from the recognition of her strength. She whispered to herself, "I've come so far. I can do this. I deserve this life." Sleep became a restorative process rather than a source of anxiety. Amy practiced mindful bedtime routines, incorporating deep breathing, meditation, and journaling. She found that intentional rest enhanced her focus, mood, and physical recovery. Each night's sleep reinforced the progress she had made, both mentally and physically. Amy also engaged with online communities for support. She shared her experiences, received encouragement, and exchanged strategies for maintaining healthy routines. These connections provided a sense of solidarity, reminding her that she was not alone in her journey. The balance of personal reflection, family support, and community engagement created a strong network that reinforced her commitment to recovery. With each passing day, the Slaton household grew more harmonious. Amy's presence brought both warmth and structure. She navigated motherhood with renewed patience, resilience, and mindfulness. Each meal prepared, each step taken, and each interaction with her children reflected a deepening awareness of her capabilities and responsibilities. The London trip remained a beacon of motivation. Amy and Tammy's preparation became a shared adventure, filled with laughter, planning, and anticipation. They navigated the logistics, packing, and outfit selection with meticulous care, balancing excitement with pragmatism. The experience reinforced the importance of planning, patience, and perseverance, qualities that had become central to Amy's recovery. As Part 4 concludes, Amy's journey continues to evolve. She has reclaimed control over her body, her habits, and her emotional well-being. She has strengthened family bonds, developed coping strategies, and cultivated hope for the future. Each day represents a deliberate step toward a healthier, more empowered version of herself, a mother, sister, and woman committed to living fully and authentically. The morning of departure finally arrived. Amy woke early, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. The Slaton household was a whirlwind of last-minute packing, snack arrangements, and double-checking tickets. Tammy zoomed around in her wheelchair, ensuring nothing was forgotten. Snacks, medications, travel documents, and, of course, the most critical accessory, her headbands. Amy's suitcase, slightly lighter than before, was packed with clothing she felt confident wearing, a symbol of her evolving self-image. The ride to the airport was filled with laughter and playful banter. Gage and Glenn bounced with excitement in the back seat, Amy checking frequently to ensure they were comfortable. Chris drove, offering encouragement with every mile. Tammy rolled beside Amy in the car, quipping about whether London would be ready for their energy. The anticipation in the vehicle was tangible, a mixture of nerves, thrill, and familial love. At the airport, the sisters navigated check-in with practiced patience. Amy's nervousness flared momentarily as she handed over her luggage, worrying about weight restrictions and security procedures. Tammy's humor lightened the mood, teasing her sister about overpacking for a lifetime supply of snacks. Amy laughed, feeling a sense of liberation in the shared moment, a reminder that she could enjoy life without fear or self-judgment. Once on the plane, Amy marveled at the experience of flying. Each seatbelt click and engine roar was a reminder that she was venturing beyond the boundaries of her old life. Tammy, beside her, clutched a guidebook, pointing out sites they would visit and joking about their dietary expectations for England. Amy allowed herself to relax, feeling both anticipation and gratitude. Landing in London was surreal. The bustling streets, iconic red buses, and towering landmarks inspired awe. Amy and Tammy navigated the city carefully, balancing exploration with the practicalities of traveling with young children. Every turn revealed new experiences, historic sites, street performers, and quaint cafes. Amy felt a sense of freedom she had not known in years, a liberation from past fears, habits, and limitations. Meals abroad became a mixture of indulgence and mindfulness. Amy allowed herself traditional fish and chips, savoring each bite while maintaining awareness of portion sizes and nutritional balance. Tammy enthusiastically joined, reinforcing that pleasure and health could coexist. Each step was a reaffirmation of Amy's strength and endurance. She felt her stamina growing, her confidence increasing, and her mental clarity sharpening. Tammy matched her pace, laughing and joking along the way, reinforcing their shared sense of achievement. Evenings in London brought moments of quiet connection. Amy would sit by the window, reflecting on the journey that had led her here, from hospital stays, rehab, and weight loss struggles to rediscovering joy, independence, and personal power. Tammy, beside her, shared thoughts, encouragement, and love. The sisters celebrated each other's victories, no matter how small, reinforcing the bond that had carried them through so many challenges. Amy began to envision a future with new possibilities. She considered how she could incorporate lessons learned abroad into daily life back home: mindful eating, emotional regulation, physical activity, and planning for personal growth. Travel had become more than a reward. It was a transformative experience, reshaping her mindset and priorities. Throughout the trip, the sisters also encountered moments of challenge. Crowded streets, jet lag, and language differences tested patience and adaptability. Amy relied on strategies learned in therapy: deep breathing, focusing on the present, and leaning on Tammy for support. Each successfully navigated challenge reinforced her confidence, resilience, and capacity to manage life's unpredictability. By the end of the London adventure, Amy and Tammy had forged memories that would last a lifetime. They returned home not just with souvenirs, but with renewed purpose, strengthened family bonds, and a reinforced commitment to health and well-being. The trip marked a symbolic and literal journey from struggle to empowerment, from fear to freedom, and from dependency to self-reliance. Upon returning to Dixon, Kentucky, Amy approached her ongoing recovery with renewed vigor. The lessons learned abroad, mindful living, balanced nutrition, and resilience in the face of challenges, became integral to her daily routine. Tammy remained her constant support, offering both encouragement and gentle accountability. Gage and Glenn continued to thrive under her care, benefiting from a mother who is now both present and empowered. Amy also returned to her weight management journey with renewed clarity. She set measurable goals, engaged consistently with support networks, and implemented the strategies that had served her so well abroad. Each day was approached as an opportunity to reinforce progress, celebrate small victories, and cultivate a sustainable lifestyle. Family gatherings, once sources of stress and comparison, became occasions for joy and affirmation. Amy participated actively, sharing her experiences, accomplishments, and aspirations. She inspired others with her story, not as a spectacle, but as a testament to resilience, self-discovery, and the power of intentional living. By the conclusion of Part 5, Amy's transformation was evident not only in her physical appearance, but in her mindset, relationships, and approach to life. She had navigated the complexities of travel, familial responsibility, and personal growth with grace and determination. The journey abroad reinforced her capacity to overcome challenges, embrace joy, and envision a life of health, balance, and fulfillment. Back home in Dixon, Kentucky, life resumed its familiar rhythm, but Amy was no longer the same person who had left. Each morning began with intention, a light stretch, mindful breakfast, and a moment of reflection before the children awoke. Gage's laughter and Glenn's coos became daily reminders of why she was fighting for her health, her independence, and her future. Tammy was her anchor, rolling beside her with encouragement, teasing, and unwavering support, ensuring Amy never felt alone on her journey. Amy found herself more conscious of the choices she made throughout the day. She approached meals with mindfulness, savoring flavors, balancing nutrition, and avoiding the automatic habits that had once dominated her life. Cooking became an act of empowerment rather than obligation. She experimented with new recipes, air-fried wings, cauliflower mash, fruit-infused water, and discovered that flavor and health could coexist. Tammy, ever the critic and supporter, offered playful commentary. "Sis, are you trying to dethrone me as the queen of snacks?" Amy laughed, feeling pride rather than shame. Outside the kitchen, Amy's physical activity became a structured part of her day. Short walks with the children, light exercises in the living room, and gradual strength training reinforced her stamina and endurance. Each step, each movement, felt like a reclaiming of her body, a silent rebellion against the years of neglect and self-doubt. Tammy, joining in when possible, encouraged a blend of determination and playfulness, ensuring that the journey was sustainable and enjoyable. The emotional dimension of recovery remained just as crucial. Therapy sessions, both individual and group, offered Amy a safe space to confront the layers of trauma, guilt, and grief that had accumulated over decades. She began to vocalize truths she had previously buried, the emotional eating triggered by past relationships, the weight of societal judgment, and the struggles of single motherhood. Speaking these truths aloud was liberating, each session peeling away another layer of fear, shame, or self-imposed limitation. Amy's connection with her children deepened during this period. She became more present, attuned to their needs, and mindful of her own reactions. Moments that had once been dominated by stress, bath time, meal preparation, bedtime routines, became opportunities for intentional engagement. She taught Gage and Glenn not only through words, but through example, showing discipline, resilience, and joy. Even social interactions shifted. Amy felt a growing confidence in public spaces, less anxious about scrutiny, and more focused on her experience. She returned to routine errands with a sense of purpose, occasionally pausing to reflect on how far she had come. The judgment of others became background noise, replaced by a growing inner dialogue of self-compassion and affirmation. Yet challenges persisted. The weight loss journey was nonlinear, marked by plateaus, cravings, and emotional triggers. Amy had learned strategies to navigate these moments, journaling to process urges, leaning on Tammy for accountability, and reframing perceived setbacks as opportunities for growth. Each challenge overcome reinforced her resilience and strengthened her commitment to sustainable change. Amidst the recovery, Amy remained mindful of her past experiences with addiction and emotional coping. She understood that old habits could resurface under stress or isolation. She created preventive measures, maintaining a structured routine, engaging with supportive communities, and openly discussing her struggles with trusted family members. This proactive approach reinforced her sense of control and minimized the risk of relapse. Amy also began to explore creative outlets. Photography, journaling, and content creation allowed her to share her journey authentically while processing her own growth. Tammy often participated, offering humor, perspective, and collaboration, turning ordinary moments into shared celebrations of progress. Their bond grew deeper, anchored in mutual support, trust, and a shared sense of purpose. The family also embraced moments of leisure and joy. Short trips around Kentucky became opportunities to practice mindful living, engage in physical activity, and enjoy the beauty of their surroundings.